Hey guys, so I just wanted to make a quick video about proportions to help you with your e-learning today. You have probably seen proportions before. I believe this is something that is taught in middle school math. However, that means it's been a while since you've seen them. And if you don't remember them, this video will help you out. So this is not actually one of our standards, but it will be used in one of our standards. So we have to know how to solve proportions in order to progress in our next standard. Okay, so that'll make a lot more sense once we talk about our new standard, which will be after the test. Okay, also I apologize if it's loud. You guys know they're doing construction next door to me, so if you hear like a random like hammer banging or like some type of noise, that's probably what it is. So I'm gonna solve a couple of these problems for you and then you guys will do the rest. It looks like there's a bunch of problems. It's just because it's practice. They're all the same idea. Once you know how to do one, you know how to do all of them. So I'm gonna start by doing number one. Our goal is we wanna know what is A. We're solving for the variable. So you're solving for the variable. Okay, and when we think of fractions, no one really likes fractions, right? But what if I told you we have 3 over 2 equals x over 2? Well, obviously we know x would have to be 3 because they have the same denominator. So our goal is to get the same denominator. Okay, so get the same denominator, which is that number on the bottom of your fraction. Okay, so we have a denominator of a and a denominator of 54. So if you remember how you get common denominators, what we want to do is actually multiply each side by the other side's denominator. So our common denominator will be 54a. So over here, I'm going to multiply by a over a. And over here, I'm going to multiply by 54 over 54. Now, the reason I have to have that on top and bottom, so a over a, is because if I multiply by anything other than 1, I'm disrupting the whole fraction. But a over a is really just multiplying by 1. And so is 54 over 54. This is just going to give me a common denominator. So now I just multiply across. And again, this is multiplying fractions. So I will do 54 times 5, which is 270. And 54 times a, which is just 54a. So all I did was I transformed this fraction into something with a different denominator. And that equals 30 times a over 54 times a. So now they have the same denominator. What I have to do is make sure their numerators are equal. So I'm going to take 270 and set it equal to 30a. And now it's just solving an equation, which you guys know how to get rid of a coefficient of a variable. And there's the construction, by the way. I don't know how loud it's going to sound on this video. So hopefully it does not disrupt too much. But we're going to divide both sides by 30. And when I do that, I get a equals 9. And then I'm done. So that's my final answer. Again, you do not have to go through this process every single time. I just want to make sure you understand the process. What you guys have probably learned before is cross multiplication. So cross multiplication is probably the way that you've seen these kinds of problems solved before. So I'm going to rewrite the same problem underneath here, and we're going to make sure that we get the same answer. And I'm going to show you guys why it works. So we had 5 over a equals 30 over 54. When we cross multiply, we literally make a cross, right? We make like an X. So I'm going to circle the things that are diagonal from each other. And then I multiply them. So here I have 5 times 54. So I'm going to write that down. Equals, so put the equal sign right in the middle of the two. And then equals 30 times a, which is just 30a. So now if you notice, we are left with the exact same equation we had up here. We did 270 equals 30a. Well, 5 times 54 is 270. So that's what this equation will simplify to. And then we do the same thing, divide by 30, and I get A equals 9. The reason cross multiplication works is because of what we did up here with getting the common denominator. That is why cross multiplication works. We don't just want to do it mindlessly and not know why it works. The whole point is that we're getting a common denominator between our two fractions. So that's what you're going to do for the rest of these problems. You can cross multiply. You do not have to do this way every time. But I want to make sure that if someone asks you, why does cross multiplication work? Like, what are you really doing? You know you're just getting a common denominator. So I'm going to do a couple more examples with you, and then you guys will do the rest on your own. So I'm going to do number 8. Because that one's a little more complex. And then I will also do, hold on one second. Okay, so then I will also do number 20. So I'm going to do number 8 and number 20 with you. All right, so looking up at number 8, we're just going to cross multiply. I'm not going to go through the long way every time now that you guys can see why it works. Okay, when I cross multiply, I'm going to circle the things that are across from each other and make an X. That's really what I'm doing. And then I'm going to write my equation. So I would have 3 times y plus 6, and this is where you have to be careful. Y plus 6 is its own thing. It's not going to turn into 3y plus 6. We have to remember to distribute that 3. So I have 3 times y plus 6 equals 12 times 2. When you get to this point, you have to distribute the 3 to the two things inside your parentheses. So it's 3 times y, which is 3y, plus 3 times 6, which is 18. So this is really where I'm at. And I know 12 times 2 simplifies to 24. So I have 3y plus 18 equals 24. I'm just solving it like a normal equation. So I'll subtract 18 from both sides, and I'm left with 3y equals 6. So then I want y by itself, which means I'm going to divide by 3, and I get y equals 2. So you're just cross multiplying and then solving your equation. But remember, the whole point is that we're getting a common denominator. So be careful with the things that are more than just a y. If it's 2 terms, you're going to have to distribute. So now we're going to look at number 20. This one is a little more complex because there's 2 places with variables, which is why I'm doing this one with you as well. So very first thing is just circle the things you're going to multiply. So make your cross. Okay, so step 1 is going to be make your X or cross. Okay, step 2 is we're actually going to multiply on the diagonal. So you're multiplying the things that you've circled and kind of grouped together, right? So I have 8 times b plus 10 equals 4 times b plus 3. So all I'm doing is I'm taking the things in the diagonal and multiplying them together. And you drop the equal sign down. So 8 times b plus 10, remember it's not just 8b plus 10, you have to distribute. So I have 8 times b plus 8 times 10, which I know is 80. And over here I have 4 times b plus 4 times 3. So that's 4b plus 12. At this point, I have to solve my equation. So I'm going to subtract 4b from both sides just because I want to get rid of the b's. And now I'm left with 4b plus 80 equals 12. Well, I already have the b's on the left side, so I'm going to get rid of this 80. I'm going to subtract it over. So then I get 4b equals 12 minus 80. So I'm going to do 12 minus 80 in my calculator. And I get negative 68. Now I just have to divide. Okay, so now I just have to divide by 4 on both sides because I want b by itself. So you guys, once you set up the cross multiplication thing, it just turns into solving equations. So now I have b equals, and I have to do negative 68 divided by 4, which is negative 17. So b equals negative 17. And remember, the whole reason that cross multiplication works is because we want these two fractions to be equal to each other. So by cross multiplying, we're getting them to have common denominators. So after you multiply the diagonals, you are going to simplify / distribute. And then step 4 is you just solve for the variable. Okay, so that is how you do regular cross multiplication problems. Proportions, we use cross multiplication. Normally, and I grew up not even knowing why cross multiplication worked. I just kind of knew it was a thing. So I'm going to make sure that you guys understand why. That's why I'm kind of expanding on this video. Okay, so now we're going to transition into the story problems. Okay, so all the rest of these problems, you're going to do the exact same way that I just did them. There's only like 4 story problems. I don't know what I'm doing. So it's on the next page. That's why it wasn't underneath. Okay, I'm going to do 2 of these story problems with you, and then you guys will just do the last 2 on your own. So setting up the proportions is the hardest part, and then solving them is the exact same thing that we just did on the previous page. Okay, so it says Ming is planning a trip. Before doing that, though, she did some research, and she learned that the exchange rate is 6 tala for $2. Okay, the things that are partners, they are going to be in one fraction. So in other words, we have 6 tala is equal to $2. So those are going to be their own fraction. And then I'm going to put my equal sign. It says, how many tala would she get if she exchanged $6? The units need to match up. So I need to put my dollars in the same place on both fractions. In other words, since it's in the denominator here, it needs to be in the denominator here. So I'm going to put $6 there. So 6 tala equals $2. How many tala are equal to $6? So that's what the proportion is. I'm trying to see if I know 6 tala is $2 and that's the exchange rate, how does that convert with a denominator of 6? So now we just cross multiply. So I'm going to circle my diagonals. And I have 6 times 6, so that's 36, equals x times 2, or just 2x. So 36 equals 2x. I'm going to divide by 2 on both sides. And I will get that 18 equals x. So the answer, don't forget your units, is 18 tala. Okay, so be careful. Make sure you remember units if it's a story problem. And then go back and make sure it makes sense in the context of the problem. So if we think about this one, 6 tala is $2. I now have $6, so I'm multiplying everything by 3. 6 times 3 is 18. So it makes sense that I would have 18 tala if I have $6. So that's how we set up these proportions that are story problems. You want to match the things that are partners. They're going to go in one fraction. And then make sure your units match up, meaning if dollars is in the numerator, it's going to be in the numerator on the other fraction. Or if it's in the denominator in one, it has to be in the denominator on the other fraction. Okay, so I'm also going to do number 2, and then I will have you guys do the last 2 on here. All right, this one says, if you buy 4 bulbs of elephant garlic, okay? I'm going to start off just writing 4 bulbs of garlic. Okay, I bought that for $8. So that means 4 and $8 are partners. They are equal. 4 bulbs of garlic equals $8. So they're going to go in the same fraction. And then it says, how many can I buy with $32? So again, match up your units. dollars was in the denominator. It needs to be in the denominator over here. And then I'm looking for how many bulbs of garlic. So this one, I'm not going to solve for you. I just want to set it up. But it's essentially the exact same problem as the first one. So a lot of these proportion story problems repeat themselves. And just keep that in mind. They're all very similar. We're trying to get from one thing to another thing. So we're looking at units, which is where you have to be careful with the story problems. Okay, remember, any takeaways from this video is that when you're solving proportions, you're just getting a common denominator between the two fractions because you want to know what makes those two fractions equivalent. And that's what a common denominator does. And we do that by cross multiplication, which I'm sure you guys have heard of cross multiplication before. So as you work through this, if any other questions come up or you're stuck, shoot me an email, and we will also talk about this in class next week. All right, thanks, guys.